Was that timer on there?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's good. You're amazing. Thank you.
Sorry, they're not carrots. It's just extra avocado.
It's all good.
Hey everyone! Bye
Hey,
everyone!
bye. You're live, by the way.
Oh, hi everyone!
Very good. We might want to focus a little bit more on the huge audience as well as the live stream. Just so we might want to shimmy your chair around a little.
Can you do it so it sort of triples the people, sort of one person 10 times?
There we go.
Can't see the people over there.
I was not expecting a live audience anyway, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
There we go.
So, you know, it's all good.
Yes, this is just watch your cup of tea. I don't want it to fall on your Dylan book. Very good. I'll check the numbers and then
Cool.
we'll get into it. Mr. Oh yeah, there's a few there. Mr. Lee, as I want to call you after one of our shared students always calls you Mr. Lee.
Is that right?
And he's Chinese, so I always imagine he's talking about a Mr. Lee who's also Chinese.
Oh, it could be.
Yeah, but no, he is talking about you, Mr.
Bruce's brother.
Fitzwater.
Oh,
little James.
yeah, James,
One of the most intelligent young men I've ever met in my
Oh,
life.
absolutely.
What a
Absolutely.
dude.
Hello, James. Are you there?
Yeah, I hope he's there. Where's my cup of tea? Life won't go on unless I've got my cup of tea. All right. This feels like Wayne's World. Like we'll be like,
Does it?
3, 2.
Yeah, it does it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
So, since this is your gaff, I shall defer to you, Jay.
Yeah, I'll do the intro. So, welcome to Song Poets Corner. This is our first live stream one of these with Mr. Lee. This is Mr. Lee Clark. We imported him ourselves from the motherland of England.
Via Hamden.
Via Hamden.
Yeah. Far away Hamden.
That's right. Cool. So Lee's been doing this for a very long time, probably longer than me, which is something to behold when you meet someone who actually has been doing it longer and has knowledge that you don't have, and it's really exciting. We talk a lot, so
It's true.
this is meant to be 40 minutes, like my one yesterday. It became an hour and 8 minutes, apparently.
Yeah. And that was just his intro.
That was my intro, yeah. So welcome, and yeah, see, he keeps me honest, I love it. So this will be very casual because that's how we do. So, but I have to do a quick shout out to our funders. We were very generously funded by the Arts Council, and in particular the Waitaki District Council is who we did it all through, and they're making sure that we're paying the good people that are coming in and helping us host workshops and stuff. So, cup of tea. So huge thanks to them. Without them, this wouldn't be so possible, and it would be so much more difficult. And it's vital for every sort of organisation in the arts to get funding and to be able to carry on, because it can be tough times.
Oh, it can be sometimes. And what's great about getting funding or passing the money on is that will go into my squirrel fund, and somewhere along the line that will emerge as a song. It
Yes.
might be another guitar, it might be a piece of equipment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, any number of ways.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Just as
And
long
it
as
might be-
my family don't find out about the money.
That's right.
That's the main thing. That's a big part of being a songwriter, actually.
and you never know who's watching and what
Fair
they
point.
produce from it. You know, like.
Yeah.
Cool. So, excuse if our focus is split between the live stream and our massive studio audience we've got behind the camera here. But at the same time, as an audience, you're welcome to participate and that sort of thing. If you're getting looks like they don't want to participate. So that's all right. But if you have, we'll do a wee Q&A at the end if interested. I will be trying to keep an eye on the chat, but it's not working so well at this end, and I'll have to totter too long with the computer to find it. So we'll answer some questions later. If you go back to the live stream in the event, you will find answers to any questions you put on there. So cool. So me and Lee have these conversations all the time, and like I've done a couple of wee podcasts. And we did one together, which was just a casual conversation. More than anything, it was an interview with Lee. This time we're going for more, slightly more structured idea on how we do, how songwriters operate, and we both have key fields we want to get back to. Can I grab your notes over here?
Yes.
Very good. You've got your copy?
No, that's just
No?
we'll share that one. It's all right.
That's all right.
It's all just
Sorry,
two pages.
if you're going to interrupt me, what you're interrupting now.
Right, yeah.
That's good.
That's good.
Cool. So one thing I like to talk about a lot is that, and this saying, I have to admit, I stole from the movie Dead Poets Society. I had to think what it was. All I could see was Robin Williams, and thought Nanu, and one of the serious ones. So he makes this statement, and they're talking about poetry, and he makes the statement, a writer writes.
Mm-hmm.
And then he basically leaves the classroom. That's about all he says to them at this point.
Yeah.
It's like a writer writes. So we have methods to do this, and lots of people use what's called pages. That's like writing every single day and writing anything, because we're looking for the language of songwriting. I watch a lot of free online things and filter them dramatically, as you have to do, because you don't know what's online and whether it's good or whether it's and I've found Berkeley University, and I hope, because I keep mentioning this, they don't shut this down, but used to be open lectures where I would go down to Otago University when I lived there and just slip into classes and have a look, and they're open lectures, and you're legally allowed to go because they've got funding and stuff from regional councils and things like that. You're legally allowed to go to one of each class just to have a look. I think is what I think it's one.
Okay.
If they recognise you the third or fourth time, they have come and have a word with you.
Well, that's why you have to wear lots of different disguises.
That's right.
Like Paul McCartney did.
There you go. Yeah. So Berkeley University still do this, but they do open lectures live on the internet, and they're still there on YouTube to go and have a look at. And I've watched a guy called Pat Patterson, hundreds of videos of his, and he is Jimmy Webb on steroids. If you know who Jimmy Webb is, he's one of the greatest songwriters, let alone his book Tunesmith is one of the best commercial songwriting books I've ever seen in my life. But this guy breaks everything down to little things that just take a week to find it yourself.
Yeah.
If you were going through one song trying to find all these details where he breaks that down. So, and he has this statement, and then I say this to you all the time, that he says, someone said to him at one of these lectures, what can you tell me today that's going to make me a better songwriter? And he's not even doing it sarcastically. He goes, go and write 100 songs and come back to me. And he's so right. Like, my early career is full of delusion, that I was amazing. But at the same time, that delusion meant I was doing it, and I was writing, and I'd written my first 100 songs before I even paid attention.
Well, perhaps you were amazing. You know,
I've still got them.
there's an area inside your own mind in which you have to be amazing, actually, and you have to acknowledge that you can be amazing because it's part of the dream, and the only way that you're going to get the results is by using your own ambitions and your own drives to get your impressions down on paper. So yeah, be amazing. What's the alternative, really?
No.
The alternative is, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. I'm not good enough to do this. Nah, forget about all that. You know, one of the great things about songwriting is its democratic quality. You can be from anywhere, and if you can write a good song, you can get a result from that song. You can communicate to anybody, and it's a very democratic process. But the people who do the writing, they do it, and they have to have a strong belief in their own awesomeness. So if you've got a little bit of awesomeness about you, tap into that.
Yeah.
Don't hide from it.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
There's one person I know is sitting on the live stream right now, and she has that awesomeness as an entertainer. I've not heard her original material yet, but it's what you're saying.
Yeah.
That will translate, like, that's her personality. She's like, there was a joke because the place where I met her was in the Mackenzie country, and her name's Mackenzie, and she made a joke, something like, they named it after me. You know, and it's like that attitude you take with you to as a songwriter, or anything in the industry.
Absolutely.
And it will step you forward. You know, like,
Well, I think that you have to have a bit of ego and a bit of bloody mindedness, for want of a better phrase, because as I said to you previously,
I think I stole this yesterday in one of my talks. So go
all right.
ahead.
Well, I'll go. Let's see if he stole from me.
See if I did
Which
it
is
right.
another great important part of songwriting. Most people from the outside looking in at music, they look at it as a consumer does. So everybody grows up listening to the radio, podcasts, Spotify, whatever nowadays, records, what are they? CDs, what are they? You know. So people listen to music, and their view of it is that it's something to be consumed. But actually, it has to be produced by somebody. And the people who produce it often find themselves on the receiving end of people who consume it. They've got an idea about what a songwriter is, and the only songwriters that they know about are the ones who get very famous, often. And often the only people, those famous people, are represented to the public through public image as something larger than life and grander than the big scope of things. But actually, most people who write songs are just ordinary people who found what they want to do, and that's what they're doing with their lives. They're writing songs.
That's right.
And so, if you were to develop any craft, whether it be, I don't know, making pots, building houses, it doesn't matter what the craft is, you'd have to dedicate yourself to that craft and learn the skills. Songwriting is similar. So you dedicate yourself to it. One of the great things about songwriting, of course, is if you do it well, you get a lot of accolades. You probably get more accolades than if you made a pot or if you built a house. There's no justice in the system. But that's the bottom line. You have to develop the craft, but you have to love doing that as well. And there's no law against it. So go for it, people. That's my advice.
Yeah, that was not the bit I stole. I'll steal that next time.
Okay. Well, you can use the bit you stole yesterday again if you want.
Yeah. I wonder if it's some of the same people will be watching, so I can't. But I did talk about the cult of personality discussion where you talked about Ed Sheeran, and we talked about Taylor Swift, and I brought up Keith Urban and how they had that sheer audacity to. Two of them moved countries to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and those interviews with Taylor Swift when she's still at high school, and you're just like, who second guessed her in that interview are looking silly today. You know? And you could feel that. You know, I'm sure I would have noticed when I first saw that going, she'll be huge.
Well, if you look at Taylor Swift, she's reading diaries from when she was 14, and so she's writing to herself in her own diaries about how she's going to be big, and she's going to do this, and she's going to do that. That's not unusual. which is a great song, by the way. It's not unusual that 14-year-olds write in their diaries that they're going to be big and they're going to be great. What is unusual are those who hold on to that dream, develop their skills, and hang on in there and become big at what they're doing.
That's right.
So there's a lot of, and the slings and arrows and the tall poppy syndrome and people saying, oh, well, this is all great, but when you're going to get a real job and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's one of the major obstacles that young songwriters will face.
Oh, absolutely.
And again, I would advise those people to be realistic about that. And when I mean be realistic about that, the reality is if you want to follow that dream and you want to pursue that dream and you want to develop that craft and do that thing with your life, and that's what makes you happy, that's the realistic thing to do. Taylor Swift did, and look what it did for her.
And included in that story was pages. Basically, like her diary was her learning the language of songwriting.
Correct.
I reckon that would be gold for any young songwriter to get hold of her diary. Yeah. There's probably lines in there that are worth stealing today.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. So let's move along a little onto writer's block is something I get asked about every day. Like, and I'm seeing reactions in our audience already. Excuse the noise in the background. The neighbours are having some major construction. I thought it was minor construction, but I'm sure even minor construction sounds quite loud.
When you're on a podcast.
When you're on a podcast, yeah. So that's not our drum tutor back there having a fit. That's real workers making a few dollars. So I hope you can still hear that all right.
So you see what he did there? Real workers making a few dollars. We're
Yeah,
real workers, Joe. We're the real thing.
We're making better money, aren't we?
Well, I don't know. Anyway, let's not
Go and watch my
Let's
podcast
talk
from
about writer's
yesterday
block.
about valuing yourself.
Yeah.
Sorry, we just talked about how we should, people that are good at this will find a way to mention other podcasts they've done. So
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
I just dug myself out of the hole there. Cool. So writer's block is something that hurts everybody. That is a writer. Like it actually, I'm sure we can all agree that it mentally and physically pains you. When they talk about blood, sweat and tears as a songwriter, the tears are over the writer's block.
I don't agree.
You don't?
No, I don't
What do
agree.
you have to say?
I'll tell you what I have to say. Yeah, well, it's just as I was saying, if you're building a house or making a pot, if things depend on you, look, somebody wants to buy a pot off you and you make pots. What are you going to do? Oh, I can't make this pot. I need to find my inspiration. What's my motivation? Your motivation is that you need to make a pot. And if you want to write songs, write songs. Now, it doesn't mean that every song is going to be Imagine or Yesterday, just to name two from the Beatles. One was John Lennon. Not every song is going to hit the bullseye, but the bottom line is that it's a little bit about like a samurai saying about archery. And they say that when you draw the bow, you're not shooting 1,000 arrows at a target, you're always shooting one arrow at the target. The amount of focus that you put into firing that one arrow, it's almost like a Zen thing. And where I'm going with that is that every effort you make, no matter how much you feel it might crash and burn at that particular moment, is going to join in and add to the sum total. And it may be that some stage later on, after you've written 100 what you think are terrible songs, you write one. It's like I said,
It changes from there, doesn't it?
yeah. I had a diary in which I wrote a paragraph daily, and so it was a diary. It was a little diary like that, but anyway, there were literally hundreds of entries in there. And when I came to look for lyrics for when I was putting together an album of work, I thought, great, I've got this diary, it's full of really inspired ideas. I got one lousy lyric out of the whole thing. But that was fine, because that's how it is. You keep ploughing away and you'll get one idea here, one idea there. So I don't subscribe to the notion of writer's block.
No, I know where you're coming from now. And I
Yeah.
don't disagree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
At all. And my dot points were to come to that point. So reverse engineer that a little and look at that idea that Lee is perfectly right as far as I'm concerned. When the times it's my mental health told me that I had writer's block, I've gone back and looked at those points. So when building the Bedford School of Music here, I was still on the road. I was like, and learning to be a businessman. So I was using a completely different side of my brain. And so I was going, oh, I'm not writing like I used to, and being all this fabulous songwriter that I thought I was. But I was writing with students. I was taking leading songwriting classes.
Yes.
And I wrote. I had my moment of inspiration, which we all know was going to come. I probably wasn't being very proactive, which again proves your point. And when I went back and looked at the songs I'd written with students, like amazing students, and I've gone back and looked at the songs I wrote with them, that they some of them are still out there performing those songs, which should have told me something, but I was like, they paid me for my time there, so I let them go. But like it's like making pop, you know. I did what I needed to do, and went back and looked at that stuff and went, crikey, the 4 years that I would have considered writer's block, I ended up removing them all from the songbook and rewriting them out and working on these songs, and came out going, well, that was actually a really creative period. It just was my notions on what I was as a writer, rather than didn't really having block. Like as you say, it probably doesn't exist. We're probably
there was a novelist, Thackeray, and someone said, how do you write a novel? And he said, well, what you need is you need a desk, some paper, you need pen and ink, you need a stool, and you need some beeswax. And you need the beeswax to stick your arse to the stool. And another one is Picasso said that inspiration will visit, but you have to be at work when she does.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Having said that, I'm a bit of a charlatan at the moment. I haven't written a song for quite a while. But there's more than one way to write a song.
Yeah.
You know, for example, one way to write songs is to listen to other songwriters. I got into songwriting because I kept hearing, this dates me a little bit, but I kept hearing these great songs, and over again they were cover versions of Bob Dylan songs. And I started thinking, well, who is this guy, you know? So then I started, my into songwriting was listening to other songwriters, and it took me years of just scribbling away and working on my craft. Another major influence on becoming a songwriter was that I wasn't very good on the guitar. I'm still not very good on the guitar. But I had a close relative, my uncle, who was very good on the guitar, and he could pick up and play anything. It used to annoy the heck out of me.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, well, he won't be able to play this one because I'm the only one who knows it. I've written it. And so those were the kind of things. So there's all sorts of different roads that you take to get to becoming a songwriter.
Yeah, that's right.
It isn't all about a shining light of inspiration. There's lots of very practical, kind of almost selfish reasons for wanting to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it is a diary of my life. So some people journal in different ways. One of the ways I journal is to write songs.
Yeah.
I write about my life in code, so that nobody can understand what I'm saying.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And
It's funny.
yeah, and the other area is that who are you communicating with if you want to write songs? Well, I don't know. If I was ever playing in front of an audience, no matter how many people were in that audience, I would work on the basis that if I wrote a song which was cryptic and interesting, if one person in that audience got the idea, that's who I was writing the song for. You know? You can't be all things to all people. So literally be yourself.
But that's also the best path to have a wide audience. Not all things to all people, but a wider audience. Like Kurt Cobain sent lyrics in your own jigsaw puzzle, and it's factual. Like I've had people come up to me saying about songs of mine, oh, it was terrible when she died. I'm like, nobody died in my song. That's, you know, and you don't tell them that, obviously. I learned that the hard way on that. They don't want to listen to that song anymore, because they know what it's actually about. And I did a songwriting thing in Dunedin at the Target Museum as part of the conference things we were doing. And I said to this group of children, you know, what do we want to write a song about? And they all slumped their heads and went, and so someone said, all songs are about love. And I'm like, it is an interpretation. Like you look at Matchbox 20's 3 AM, it had a huge influence on me. I thought it was a great song about some girl that broke his heart, and but she was really annoying, telling him to wear a jacket before he left the house, and you know, all these, like trying to mother him. It was about his mother. You know, it was a different type of love. Like we can write songs from lots of points of view, without just being about the same. So,
Absolutely. Often a lot of things are clothed in being love songs. I mean, there are many songs that I've really liked by, say, the Beatles. I'm sure a big influence, and they sing about love all the time. They weren't singing about love really. They were just using love as a shorthand word for lust.
That's right.
But it made it acceptable. It made the song acceptable. So love is often used as a code word to disguise what these songwriters really talking about as well.
Which probably did influence a lot of writers to write more about love, which is what we get to where we are. But one, like, just to go further into the Beatles, one thing I've found, because after you get past the point that we're not talking about real block, it's like we have to be more proactive as writers. We have to every day be looking towards something to improve ourselves. For me, song analysation is massive, because if you go through, and the Beatles are a killer example, even if you're just looking for song structure, boy, do they want to break the rules. They, you know, I have a saying in my songwriting classes that I stole this line, but it's a wrestling thing where it said the rules and bones are made to be broken. And I just love that idea that, like, why do we have to write verse, chorus? You know, I went through a decade of a professional career, and someone said, why don't you start with a chorus? And we were talking about my songs being quite short. And they were like, why don't you start with a chorus? I'm like, how did it take that long to start?
Well, I disagree.
Oh, I love that.
No, I don't totally disagree, but I agree with for example, some of the Beatles songs were opened with the chorus, and it was like, boom, we're away.
That's right.
But they put a lot of work in. They were a covers band, really, the Beatles originally, but they were also a covers band who were writing songs since they were teenagers, since they were 15, 16, when it wasn't the done thing. You weren't supposed to write your own songs back in those days. You were only supposed to play other people's. So they only played other people's, but they wrote their own songs and introduced them into their sets. And then, of course, when they got famous, they became known as a primo songwriting duo. A lot of the work, I think, was very much informed by so many of those songs that they performed by other artists. So by the time they became a quote overnight success after working together for 7 years through blood, sweat and tears, they had such an arsenal of music and knowledge behind them that they were naturally good songwriters, because they could literally just pick and choose. It's like a metaphor I would suggest is, if you go into a supermarket and you've got your trolley, and you can wander down the aisles, and if you've got as much money as you want, you can just wander down all the aisles and you can grab what you want and throw it in the trolley. Well, that's what the Beatles were like musically and lyrically, because they played so much music and they'd listened to so much music and had so much musical background that when they came to write a song, they were like that guy or that woman just pushing the trolley and just reaching out for the ideas and throwing them in. They had such a backlog of information at their disposal,
Yeah.
which again is worth a strong argument for listening to lots of other people's
Lots of other
music,
music,
lots of
yeah.
other songs.
It will change you as a writer because you'll see how other people have done it and
Absolutely.
combine it with your own ideas and
Yeah, yeah.
you know, and you'll find that other people have broken the rules. Like we live in a modern pop right now is very repetitive chord patterns, and it's not dissing those writers because some of them are insanely clever. Like
Yeah.
we talk about the ones that people diss all the time, and some
Yeah.
of my students think I'm dissing them, and then they enter other classes and go, it's not how I felt like you were saying.
Mhm.
Shit.
Yeah.
You know, so we talk about those artists, but music has kept evolving and changing, and I think we're getting to a point where we're hitting a peak of the four chord repetitive thing, and a lot of that is going to change dramatically over the next little while. You're going to start seeing some acts appearing, and I've got a son that lives in your homeland, and he's telling me what's happening over there in the London club scene, and Beyonce's playing with and sending me demos, and
Yeah.
something's happening, and something's going to change.
Well, there was. There's another reason. Another reason the Beatles were so important is that they were told, you know, guitar bands are on the way out, and every second generation of musician is told that bands are on the way out.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is there is no replica for it, not yet. There is no substitute for people going and playing live and making a noise which gets people right in the solar plexus and making statements which get them right between the ears. That's the beauty of being a songwriter.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I have no problem with the repetitive stuff.
No,
You know, I'm-
yeah.
Listen to different eras of music. It's consumer driven. You know, the people who want to buy the music, want to listen to that kind of music, fine and dandy. There was a stage where every song seemed to have the same chord pattern, you know, doo-wop music and rock and roll music. And I'm sure there were people sat around in those days going, "Oh, it's repetitive and it's nonsensical," you know. So, you know, that's just ages and stages of how music evolves. And I think also we live in a blighted time for you to be a musician in one respect. When you look back into the 60s, 70s, even up to the 80s, radio was devoted to selling units of music. You could listen to the radio in the car on the way to the record shop, and you could go to the record shop and you could browse through literally thousands of records, and then you could take it home and you could read the album cover on, you know, on the way, whatever. You know, it was a real event. And now you can hear about an artist who put out 12 albums throughout the total period of their lifetime, and you can download all of their albums on Spotify in a matter of seconds, and then never listen to them.
Yeah, that's right.
So the way that music is consumed has changed a lot. On the bright side, it's a matter of scale. Although the world is a big place and there are lots of purchasers of the popular stuff, because of the internet and because of the communications we have now, I don't think there's ever been a better time to be an independent artist, just making your own music, and then find your tribe. Make your music, put it out there, put it on Spotify, put it on Bandcamp, and then see if your tribe will come to you.
Again, it's being proactive
Correct.
with what you're doing. Like we each have little home studios, and people walk in and go, "Well, where's the studio?" Because they remember those lavish studios like Sublime Studio down in the valley there. That is beautiful.
Yeah.
But there's people like us recording in sheds and garages, and you know, like it's a real thing.
I have a theory about that.
Yeah.
My theory is that at some stage in the future there will be algorithms built into digitized music, and one of the algorithms will be GarageBand style, because you have you've got a mass of new artists coming out, and they're not, quotes, real producers. They don't really know what they're doing. They're just making an approximate sound, and some of the sound is pretty bad. It sounds like it was recorded inside a tin can by somebody wearing a sock over their head. But that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter because that going forward into time, there will be a generation of artists that will listen to that and they'll want to replicate that. And they'll want to push a button on their laptop that says the GarageBand sound. So regardless of how you're doing it or what you're doing, at the end of the day, what you're doing is going into like the cultural zeitgeist, for want of a better word. Whatever we're doing, all these people in their bedrooms, in their kitchens, in their living rooms, making stuff on their laptops, that's all going into the mix. And it's all starting to revolve and form the culture that we live in. And we're all part of it. And you can be if you want to, anyway.
I can hear what you're saying is there's this huge movement of indie artists that might not make a penny in their lifetime, and they'll be like the famous artists that suddenly became huge after, what's the word?
Posthumously.
Posthumously? Yeah, thank you. I learned something today.
If you die in a funny way, it's a posthumous. I think I'm here all week. I do weddings, bar mitzvahs.
So back to like these platforms like Spotify, Bandcamp. I got really into Bandcamp as you did, like because it seemed approachable, and I think both of us had a little bit of rebel in us not wanting to play the game with Spotify, and then it took, like Neil Young, a real rebel, rebelled against it, and I went, but that's us missing out. I'm thinking, well, how many people are missing out on our stuff? But the joy of these platforms that I've discovered that I really love is no one's telling you that those tin can performance that you're talking about. You've been listening to my stuff from the mid-2000s, haven't you?
And even more recently.
That's right. Good. So nobody's there saying, no, this, you can't release. Who do you think you are to release that? And like, there's no one there to say that, and then when you're thinking that after you put it up, which I'm sure most artists go, oh, was that really ready? Spotify, you can't go back and change that the same way where Bandcamp, like I had an album I released again to break the rules and stuff. I released an album in 2021 and I called it 21, and I planned to have 21 tracks. And then I realised there's no rule. There's no rule about releasing an EP of 2 songs, like a single, or a single, or an album being 33 songs. Like I released, sounds egotistical to say greatest hits package, but it's in Mrs. package of it's currently got 37 tracks on it. And I keep updating it as I release something that I think has reached a certain point of streams. I go, oh, people must like that, I better put that on the main package.
You got a quality, there's a quality filter as well. However, one of the problems that you might face, or I face, is that I go through what I call purple patches, where I can write songs in rapid succession. So during the lockdown, for example, I thought, sod this for a game of soldiers. My way of dealing with that whole thing was to write a song a day. Nobody told me it was going to be like 52, 54 days before they let us out again. But anyway, I got to day 52 and I thought, well, this is getting silly. If I keep doing this, I'm going to have to go to 100 days or something. So I stopped at 52. There were 2 major results from that. One of them was I got some brilliant songs. And I kid you not, I really enjoy those songs. They were great. And one of the great reasons that they were, so in my words, brilliant, is that I was under pressure to write them. So I had a self-imposed pressure to write those songs. I'm going to get a song out today. I'm getting a song out today. So I got a song out that day. so that was the bright side. That was the good side, because I've got a large library, previous knowledge to draw from. So, for example, I might have a lyric from one song which was written years ago by somebody else, and it gives me the influence. So I wrote a song called Ballad of Sugar E, for example, and one of the lines in there, I can feel the bullet burning deep inside my chest. Well, actually, that was a line out of a Marty Robbins song called El Paso, which I was trying to play today. So just one lyrical image can create a whole song for you. So I got some really great songs because I maintained the discipline and I treated it like a job. On the downside, because I was forcing myself to write songs every day, quite a few of them sounded quite the same. So that was the drawing the bow thing, you know. That was like, you know, eventually I got something which was a pearl or a diamond, but there were several lumps of coal. But to push the analogy, you know, coal's useful too. It keeps you warm, you know.
And I think you find if you go through phases like that where you've exhausted the purple, as you put it, pretty eloquently too, I must admit, I knew what you meant.
Did I use that phrase?
You used the phrase purple periods.
Oh yeah.
Which, you know,
I made no
hung out with far too many
reference to
artists
exhausting the
in my
pedal.
life. I've hung out with too many artists in my lifetime. They understand us.
Yeah,
They don't think it's as weird as other people do. So, you know, like I think that those periods you can go back to them and decide. And I think you'll find if you think of those as magic periods, you go back to those, and I said to you recently, I think that I went back and I just looked for where I was writing my best stuff, and I realised in these songbooks that are all dated, and I've even got where I wrote them, and you know, the lyrics pretty much say why I wrote them, but I went back and I realised during those periods I was doing pages, just writing random stuff, and then and I thought, oh, there's going to be. So I was in a magic period and was digging back at another magic period, and went, I wonder what I can find, and add it to new grown musicianship that I have today, and I found this one page that just was full of pearls, man. Like it was just it talked about like the opening line. Like you can normally tell by opening. I think you can tell by opening lines whether you're going to stick out a song, because if they've finished, if you get a great opening line, it's really hard to finish the song because you've got to go somewhere from there. It's all downhill. So I normally think if that opening line's great, you know, I'm going to continue listening to that song, because if they put it out, that it hasn't gone too far downhill. So I found this these lyrics, and it talked about a piece of someone's clothing dangling over my headstock, and I just knew straight away that was full of you know, I'm trying to be careful what I say on the live stream here. It's all ages. So you know, and it told a really great story, and I was able to take musicianship from my new period into lyrics of an older period, and I changed nothing, and I thought that was a flop. It had no chords, no nothing. I thought that those lyrics they didn't live up to that standard at the time, and now I look back at them and go, it's one of my better songs.
Well, I'm actively not writing songs at the moment, and that's how I'm writing songs, and I'll explain that.
Yes.
The last thing I put out on Bandcamp, I called it 2020 Visions. So it was really important that I got it out in 2020. So I put it out literally on the 31st of December 2019. For very selfish reasons. I just figured that as it was coming into 2020, there might be more searches using the word 2020. You know?
Yeah, rejects the planet.
I did, yes. It's all down to me, actually, yes. That aside, I was so proud of that album and the songs in it that I didn't want to just go into another one, because I'll give you a good example. One of my favourite songwriters from back in the day was Elvis Costello. However, you have to go back all through his work to hear his evolution, because there was a lot of this stuff that sounds very much the same.
Yeah.
I don't want the next thing that I put out to sound the same as the previous one.
Previous one. Yeah.
So the only way that I can ensure that is by weaning myself off the work I've been doing, so that when I go back into writing the next album, it will be with a fresh approach.
Mm.
And I don't have no illusions. I mean, I've got a style, and that style will assert itself.
Mm.
However, I need to put a bit of distance between myself and the previous one, kind of resting between gigs, you know.
Yeah.
But long story short, there's more than one way to write songs.
Yeah.
Now, I'm actively songwriting, and this sounds strange, by refusing to write any songs at the moment. What I'm doing instead is I'm just observing, writing notes occasionally, and just percolating ideas.
Yeah. I want to use your quote of I disagree.
Oh, okay.
No, my real point is I've never taken that approach. I've heard lots of people do it and it works for them, but I've never taken it on purpose. Like, it's the periods I would have considered block periods, and then when I have reapproached it and been more proactive, I've seen that change, you know, like it's a completely different mindset.
Well, it's like
Changed as a human as well.
It's like a joke, isn't it? What's black and white eats like a horse. It's a zebra. The thing is a zebra, and a zebra knows it's a zebra.
Yeah.
So, you know, and my argument is a songwriter is a songwriter, and they know they're a songwriter. So they don't have to be exposing themselves to the world as songwriters all the time.
Mm.
There's lots of different ways that cerebrally and mentally and emotionally you can just be working on your chops, just working on how you want to portray the world when you get round to writing songs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not likening songwriting to theory of relativity or anything like that much. Although I did write a song called Relativity because I liked the word. But the point I'm going to make is that somebody such as Einstein, for example, when he was working on the theory of relativity, he ate, drank and dreamt it. So every waking hour he was thinking about what he was doing, and he admitted that the answer came to him, quotes, in a dream.
Mm.
So he literally dreamed some of the ideas, some of the answers to some of the most difficult mathematical problems that humankind has ever faced. So you can employ that method, can't you? You can employ that process whereby if you totally steep yourself in your dedication to what you're doing, and you dedicate yourself to that all the time, you just, at some stage, like electricity out of your fingers almost, or static or something, it will emerge. Mm. So you're always on duty, you're never off the clock.
No,
long story short.
It makes me think of the opposite side of the coin as well, where the opposite side of the coin can fail. Where I remember a phase where, like, I'm someone who's proactive, as we've talked about. Like, I look for songwriting challenges on the internet. I'm always trying new things, always finding new things for my students, and then kind of think I should be able to do those challenges before I give them to my students, which I love. My smart students actually challenge me back and say, when's the last time you did that? Because they know I've been doing it so long. They're like, when was the last time you wrote a song? With on the mundane, or I didn't use any of those tricks. I remember when I was formulating these ideas about how to be proactive, I had been writing, like I started writing songs when I was about 8 years old. I'm not saying they were good, but like and they were songs about my parents were getting divorced, so like I had lots of things I could write about, and listening to country music in the house where everything was about cheating.
My goodness, I'm surprised you lasted this
long. I know, yeah. Me too. So I went, who are the songwriting greats, and why are they great? So I went, okay, well, this is who I think they are, and I wrote a list. And then I went, I don't think everybody agrees with me. The people I care about the most, they don't agree with everything I say, which is healthy. So I went, well, what does Uncle Google have to say about this? Who are the songwriting greats? And they came up with some names that I'd heard, and I knew we'll use the number one reference that came up.
And now we're doing this interview.
Yeah, that's right. So Tom Waits came up, and I went,
yeah.
who the flip is Tom Waits? Like, I'd heard of him, and you know, first podcast on songwriting, someone said, who the flip is Tom Waits?
Yeah.
But so I dug deep on who Tom Waits really was, and then I found the cheesy, all the songs Rod Stewart covered. You know,
Yeah,
Rod Stewart's career is pretty versions of Tom Waits' amazing songs.
He's a journeyman.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, and then I went, well, how did you get to that place, and why are there other songs on there that Rod Stewart hasn't covered? You know, so I dug deep on those, and I found that album Closing Time, which just triggered me because it has perfection on it, and then it just goes off course. And I was thinking, who are you, Jay Bedford, to say that Tom Waits' concept album that he lost the plot on?
Yeah.
Who the flip do you think you are? And so I went, you know, the ego in me said, you need to write the missing song. Where we did some random stuff after Old 54 or whatever it's called. 54, 55. There's a couple of random songs after that. And I went, I don't know about those. So I wrote a song, Lonesome, that I thought was like the missing song that told the rest of the story. So it's quite long to fill that gap. And then 2 years, must have been a couple of years after writing the song, I opened the Otago Daily Times, and there was a spread in the middle, and it was this huge interview, like 4 or 5 pages, from an interview with Tom Waits. And he talked about the Closing Time concept album, and he said, I'm an actor. So if you go and watch any interviews with him, you know his early career, I thought he must have been the coolest guy on earth, like the way he just hammered all the time and being able to write like that. He must be spectacular. But one point he was acting, but he, you know, like there are great actors that get lost in character. He admitted he was lost in his character.
Yeah.
And he completely lost the plot and thought it was perfect when he released it.
Well, I think you've hit on something. If I were titling this podcast, that's what we call it. It would be finding the missing song.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I think ultimately, everybody who wants to write songs, who gets involved in the craft of writing songs, that's what they're doing. You know, they see there's a vacuum somewhere. They'll hear songs which are brilliant by other people, and they'll hear songs which they don't think are brilliant by other people. But somewhere in between there, they themselves are trying to fill that gap and write that missing song.
Yeah.
So that's a splendid way of describing the motivation for writing songs.
Yeah.
See if you can find that missing song and write it.
Yeah.
What better way to go?
Because that opens your eyes up to, because sometimes you state that and you're wrong. I don't think I was about that one, and neither was Tom Waits himself. So.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking, they really get AC/DC or ABBA or the Bee Gees. You know, I didn't get it.
Yeah.
And I went, what? Why do billions of people all over the world, and ABBA's the best example, that's when they got the gasps, so I'll dig into that one, where, and I did the deep dive in the Bee Gees and found that was their songs.
Yeah.
Their songs are so good, and it's just, I didn't like the Night Fever. It's like, didn't do it for me, and AC/DC was a bit raunchier, it could have been bluesier for me, personally. But the ABBA, the way I discovered it is the cheesiest way to discover why they were so brilliant was the Mamma Mia film. And then the second one,
Well,
was even better.
There's a couple of things though, isn't there? Because you want to write songs, you want to write that missing song, you've got all the respect in the world for the people that you think are the greats, and then you fall into the trap of viewing other songwriters through a consumer's eyes. So you end up discounting ABBA because they're popular, or you discount Taylor Swift's a classic example. You discount this artist because of the way they present.
Yeah.
And then you forget to listen to the actual songs, you know.
That's right.
There's a whole bunch of songs which have emerged from Sweden, a hit factory in Sweden, Stockholm. And the reason for that was that back in the day, Elvis Costello said that he thought that ABBA were brilliant songwriters.
Mm.
And he used to cover Knowing Me, Knowing You, for example.
Right.
And all the
He's
people,
not wrong, by the way. I come to that.
and all the people in Sweden who were too hip to rock, they were too cool for school, you know? And they're all ABBA, it's all pop rubbish and it's all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Suddenly, because this icon of new wave had actually pointed out that they wrote good songs,
Yeah.
it was okay to like ABBA all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's right.
And it launched the whole industry of
Mm.
songwriting in Stockholm.
Yeah.
True story, that. So yeah, there's a trick, isn't it? It's easy to fall into the trick of
Yeah.
viewing songwriting through a consumer's eyes because
Mm.
that's how we're raised.
Because you modernise the same thing, and like how many people in say our age bracketish that would see Sam Smith at the Brit Music Awards with those big shoes and the flashy outfits and go, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Just like they did with Elton John for the duck suit, you know.
Yeah. Or the
How can
Beatles
you
for not wearing
discount-
collars or having long hair.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no way.
Long hair.
Yeah. So true. What's our time? Gosh, we can talk, can't we?
Oh, it's certainly
Yeah,
can.
yeah, that's nearly the hour up. So, one thing I think that I would be saying to anybody watching this here or online is that there are different approaches, and that is what we're looking for. Like it's not just the missing song; it's the missing link. Like you and I, as songwriters, can sit there for hours and go, yeah, that's right, and then tell our own version of it. And then today the theme was I disagree, you know, which was great, and it was it was totally another point of view on almost the same thing. Where like I talk about block in a lot of classes because people believe that. Where on the other end of it, I agree. I actually do agree with you that there actually isn't such a thing. We need to be proactive about these things and look for them and look for other people's approaches, because there are people that take it even further than you're talking, where when they have the periods of the clean cut from that period of their songs and don't want to exhaust the purple anymore, they then move forward and they won't listen to anybody else. They won't, you know, and I, you know, that works for a lot of people. They just cut off from, they won't read a great book by Bob Dylan. They won't read Jimmy Reed's Tunesmith book, or this is where I should push one of my podcasts there. Or my book One Man Band, you know, they won't go and read that.
Well, I did it for about 10 years at one stage.
Yeah,
True story. And but my form of rebellion was only to listen to music that wasn't of the same genre and style as the stuff I was playing.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've done that actually, to be honest.
And then 10 years later I got back, and then I started working on GarageBand and had to relearn how to write songs. So when I was younger, so much younger than today, if I wrote a song and you, the audience, didn't like my song, that was your problem. As I got older and I went back into songwriting, I had to completely relearn the craft. And it is a craft, but like any craft, it has to be applied and worked on and treated as a craft.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's a big one though, like what you touched on there. We'll have to close up soon, but I don't want to.
Well, we could talk more about it in the
that's
next
right.
podcast.
That's right. Yes. I've forgotten my point after you said that. What were you saying?
I was saying, I don't know what I was saying either. What was I saying? I was talking about how I had to relearn the craft of songwriting, and you have to treat it as a craft.
Yeah.
You know, it's got its mechanics about it.
I know it was. I found because for me that point of view of we're being tainted by everything around us was I went, well, it's going to happen, like no matter what.
Yeah.
But if you're not, for me, I say if I'm not proactive about it, I will find myself just digging back into the things that have already made its mark. So if you're not listening to anything, you're not paying attention to your old songs, you're actively not writing in your case. I found like I'd just done the rock and roll thing to death when we reached 2001. And I'd done it to death. I toured with a rock and roll band with a guitarist that sounded like Slash, and we'd recorded an album, and we were, you know, like I'd done that thing, and I was like, what's next? What can I do? And I started to write real bluesy and funky stuff, and I went, okay, I'm changing direction, I can feel it, and I want to be proactive about this. So I made sure I didn't listen to any like Guns N' Roses, Bon Jovi, Poison, the bands that.
Interestingly enough, I made the same decision, but for different
Yeah,
reasons.
different reasons, yeah, that's right. So I actively started hanging out with people, the wrong crowd. And I ended up at these nightclubs.
Well, indie artists.
Yeah, you know, that's how it happened actually. Yeah, longer story than I'm going to give.
Yeah.
But I ended up going to the nightclubs and watching what a DJ does. And hearing those songs all the time that were big at the time, and the classics and the real disco and funk is what came out of it for me. But and what they do with the drop and what they do with the and I started writing what I would have said at the time was the funkiest stuff of my career. It wasn't, because GarageBand, if you want to write something dance or disco, you can cut loose, you know, like you can turn anything into disco if you try hard enough. So I remember getting quite annoyed because everything was about my songwriting at the time. I was proactively going to a nightclub, which is, you know, for a long-haired rock and roll guy like me, that was a very weird place to be. You know, all the girls would look at you funny there, even under pretty blue lights. You know, I thought I looked so much better under those lights, but apparently I didn't. But then the DJ would see a bunch of long hairs, and the next thing there'd be a dance version of Living on a Prayer or Sweet Child of Mine. And I'd get really annoyed because it's like it's going against what I'm proactively doing. But, So being proactive is probably one of the biggest things that I push. So we're saying like you're going, oh, I'm going to be not proactive. We're proactive about not being.
True.
And you're seeking that.
I've got the next album cover and the name of the album visualised in my head. I just don't have any songs for it.
Oh, that's great.
But that doesn't matter, because you start somewhere. You start with a single step. You know, if I've got that idea, now I've got. I haven't got the concept, but every time I put together an album, I usually have like a unifying concept. Like a couple of times ago, it was astronauts and planets. You know, references to that kind of stuff, kind of Bowie-esque type stuff. And the last one was had 2 or 3 songs which were set in like Elizabethan times.
Oh.
But they were rock songs, but they were informed by that kind of thing.
You know, that works in my head as a rocket.
Witch burning and torture. That kind of stuff. So I'm getting there where I've got a cover and I've got a name for the album. And so now I'll start to draw together some ideas, and I'll get my themes, and then it will just all fall together. And then I'll apply the other thing, which is just that sheer bloody minded getting down and writing with it.
That's right.
So you have to be. It's a little bit like plate spinning. Have you ever seen plate spinners on stage? They've got one plate going, they have to go over there, and the other one starts to wobble and things like that. There's an element of that, but on a neurological basis, that's brilliant. Research has indicated that music, and so I would say by implication songwriting even more, is great for the brain, because all of the different areas of the brain that light up when you're listening to music, they will light up in similar ways when you're writing music. You have, you know, the reasoning, you have the bass, you have the treble, you have the imagination. So the worst case scenario, or the lowest kind of pitch I can make for songwriting as a craft, is that it's good for your brain, and it might actually serve you well into your old age.
Oh, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
I've definitely, well, my first songwriting book, you can't, it wasn't very legible.
Yeah.
The songs I'd written, I knew what they had said, but like, the English language wasn't my strong point at the point. And it's, most of the education I've had is developed or been inspired by my songwriting. Cool. Oh, there we go. 5 minutes over again. Look at that. Cool.
We'll do it again.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah.
So me and Lee are working on ideas to further. I've got some solo podcasts. One does include Lee, where it's virtually an interview. I think that was the approach we were taking.
Yeah,
but
pretty much. Yeah.
I think we just chit chatted like we do.
Yeah, I think I sang at the end, didn't I?
Yeah, you always seem to. Do you want to do something?
Yeah. So this is one I wrote years ago.
What key are we in this?
We're in D minor diminished minor seventh, accredited, you know. And this song, I don't have a pick, I apologise. This song was inspired by My Sweet Lord, and that's as far as we went. So it goes, and I was away from my family. I'm away from my family at the moment, though, so maybe that's why I'm singing it a lot. Just take my advice. Always keep in touch with your loved ones. Better think twice if you're thinking you're above it all. Because acting like you don't give a damn, honey, you're not fooling anyone. Sweet Lord in heaven above, you know we're all looking for love. I won't say this twice. It's not as if the world knows you were living. You better think twice. Hang on to the ones who are so forgiving. You're above it all, honey child, you're bound to fall. Sweet Lord in heaven above, hang on to the ones that you love. 'Cause I've been aimless, shameless, far from blameless, down 3 times and you can't name this. Say it's a lonely game, but you've only got yourself to blame.
That's how you end. All right.
Yeah.
So thank you for tuning in to watch this or come along. If you did offer some insight in the chat, we'll do some answers later. We had a slight technical hitch right beforehand, which hopefully we don't have again. But normally I've got the chat right in front of me and I can just throw it at you, but it's not happening today. So again, a quick shout out and a thank you to the Arts Council and the Waitaki District Council. I should probably also thank the amazing Otago Museum, who we did some workshops with earlier in the week. Well, I did. And a huge thank you to Mr. Lee Clark for coming all the way from, where were you born?
I was born in Grimsby in Lincolnshire.
Yeah, there you go, yeah.
It was another time and another place.
Cool, so hopefully we'll see you again, and I look forward to talking to you in the chat.
Thank you very much. Very enjoyable. All the best.
Over and out.
Okay.
Bada bada boom.
Yeah, that